Hey everybody, it's Barbara and welcome back to my channel Straight Out of Context. I am very sorry that I have to even make this to address this, but while I'm doing it, I might as well just get all the way in. There have been 6 different legal complaints or lawsuits that have been filed in relation to Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, Ryan Reynolds, among many other people. And this video was a 10-minute long video talking about the Taylor Swift involvement and her decade-plus long friendship with Blake Lively. This user left this comment despite having left another very nasty comment on a different video which caused YouTube to flag and block them. That was in regards to Meghan Markle. However, this comment did come through onto my page. Blake Lively and Taylor Swift is over, including the proxy friendship she had with Ryan Reynolds. I do believe Taylor Swift had a hand in this, but in a supporting role. I don't blame Taylor Swift for being upset with Blake Lively was using her name as leverage. As for her being a godmother, it's a cute title, but if something were to happen to Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, she's not going to take care of those kids. Carrie28 goes on to comment, I can't stand Taylor Swift, to which I reply, everyone is entitled to think and feel the way they do, heart. In this thread, she goes on to say she always seemed like a brat to me, to which I meant to say sure is, not it. She was raised with wealthy parents. She says, so true, to which I reply, I mean, literally, what 14-year-old has parents that are wealthy enough to just say, you know what, I think I'm going to relocate the entire family from nowhere, Pennsylvania to Nashville, Tennessee to force my daughter to be able to get a record deal. Everybody knows that her father bought it for her. In exchange for her record deal, he bought over 3% stock in Big Machine Records. And don't worry, stick around because I will be showing you the proof that is a fact. Somebody comments, she could never be Celine. Yes, that's true. And I absolutely adore Celine Dion. I did a video about her months ago. I really highly suggest you watch it if you're a fan. Jill B. 3072 says Taylor Swift has more personal involvement in this case and is mad that Blake outed it. I think that's what a lot of people are speculating or feeling. But if this case really does go to trial in March of 2026, I really hope the truth does come to light. But it's this comment that I really want to respond to from TA Swiftie Fan 13. Taylor is only godmother to one of their children, just one, and Taylor did not know about the meeting. I can tell you that for a fact. And yes, she feels used. Wouldn't you if a friend talked about you like that? She owned you? And you may not know this, but Taylor was sexually assaulted when she was younger. So for someone to lie about being sexually harassed, I'm sure she feels betrayed and hurt. And Taylor didn't see the guy who sexually assaulted her. I think she meant sue for $400 million because she cared more about getting him convicted and put on the record. She sued him for $1. And again, she's only godmother to one of them. I met Taylor at her Reputation tour, and she is kind and humble, and she has a huge heart, and she takes the time to actually listen to what you're saying. She is an anomaly when it comes to mega superstars because she acts just like a normal, nerdy girl who's not standing on a pedestal above you, but it's right there beside you. Okay, I'm not watching you anymore, but I like you. But if you're going to bash her, by Felicia. And she didn't steal that song. She didn't plagiarize anything, which is another reason why she wouldn't be on Blake's side, because she takes that type of shit at the utmost seriousness. Okay, I'm going to go over this point for point and really break this down with my response, which is this. No, Ryan Reynolds himself and her PR publicist, Tree Paynes, confirmed. Ryan Reynolds can confirm to you that Taylor Swift is godmother to his 3 daughters, James, Inez, and Betty. And yes, correct on record, Taylor Swift is the godmother to 3 of Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' daughters, James, Inez, and Betty. Swift has included the names of Reynolds and Lively's daughters in the lyrics to her song, Betty. She is not godmother to the youngest and only son, Olin. Taylor Swift and Blake Lively are very close friends and have been for over 10 years. She's not friends with you. She's not friends with me. Everything I said, I verified and corroborated. You may, if you're a Swiftie, want to go double check your info by also corroborating and verifying it. Nowhere in here do I say anything about my personal opinion. I state facts. I'm not giving out the private information in emails to anyone, but that's where you are going to want to start to get in touch to verify and corroborate the facts. NatNO812 says, and yes, she better be nice to you. You're paying her bills. LOL, that is funny. You are so naive. Nat goes on to say, you look silly going hard over someone you don't know. Of course, Taylor is gonna pretend she's not in this. Taylor's always good till stuff gets in the media. She's not fooling anyone, but maybe you. But my question is, if Blake Lively is telling the truth, why wouldn't her friend back her and support her? She clearly supported her creative endeavors behind the scenes and having a sexual harassment trial herself before. If Blake is telling the truth, she would back her friend. It's only because facts and evidence has been put out as exhibits in the lawsuits legally submitted to the court of law that clearly show Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were lying and Taylor Swift knew about it. That is why she's not backing her friend, because she knew about it and was involved. Now that those text messages and private emails are out, the truth is out. If Taylor Swift genuinely believed that this was really what happened to Blake Lively, she would publicly support her and nothing less. But this is the response that I'm going to make via video right here, right now, because I cannot post this long of a response via comment on my channel. And that is, that's her life's MO. And that is not me dragging her as a person, as a woman, as an artist, or the music she put out with dozens of producers who helped her make it. This is all just facts that I corroborated and verified. Every time the truth starts to come out, her involvement in things starts to come out, she tries to back out and deny any involvement, and that's just not the truth. It's not working anymore. She's got to stop doing that. She has the biggest PR machine in not only the United States and in Hollywood, but the entire world. Taylor Swift has a bigger PR machine than the President of the United States. Ask yourself, who needs a publicist and a PR machine which they pay over $15 million a year for if they are who they say they are? If they are who they are making you believe they are. I welcome everybody's thoughts and opinions and feelings as long as the person is respectful and civil. There are millions of people out of 330 million American citizens that are not Taylor Swift fans, nor do they just blindly and naively believe her media. My opinions about Taylor Swift and me not being a fan makes me the perfect person to be able to objectively say that she is not telling the truth to people on this and believe the evidence. Nobody else's fan base goes onto somebody else's channel and makes comments like this threatening to leave. I don't like hardcore and grindcore metal. Do you see fans of that genre going onto others' platforms saying, I'm going to leave your channel and I'm not going to talk to you anymore because you're not a fan of Pig Destroyer? No. Only Swifties do that. That tells you how amazing her PR machine truly is and how she uses and weaponizes her fan base to force people to like her. That's not only harassment and bullying, that's pure dictatorship. She's involved, and her friends and her own PR verified that fact. She can't claim that she didn't know now. She did know. She intentionally tried to intimidate and falsely accuse a man. She put blind faith into her really close friend of 10 years and got involved. She's not only read Blake Lively's rewrite and helped her edit it with her thoughts of what was good and bad about it, she helped her intimidate Justin Baldoni to go with her version. She was active in meetings for It Ends With Us more than once. She was at their home where she and Ryan Reynolds with Blake Lively went on to attack Justin Baldoni, basically saying that you'll go with her version of the rewrite or else. It's implied when they gang up on him stating such. She demanded Blake fire the composer doing the scoring because she didn't like him from the past and that he was not nice to her before, without explicit pre-approval from Sony executives. She refused to let them use My Tears Ricochet for the film unless he was let go and another scorer composer was brought on. hers, and her music video editor also, to get them credited for the movie and paid, and also herself for the royalties. She's omitted the truth from the mainstream media. Justin Baldoni and his lawyers will be smart to subpoena and depose her. There is no doubt that they will. Blake even says in the text messages and in emails that are evidence, and all 6 of these lawsuit files or legal complaints, that she doesn't do anything creative without Taylor and Ryan's input, advice, and approval. That she discusses everything creative she touches with them. That's why she says no to many projects and movies. I think a lot of Taylor Swift fans really have a hard time with separating the fact that she can be a huge mega star after 18 years of very carefully constructed use of the mainstream media and PR propaganda, and the real imperfect human being that she actually is in real life. As are we all. We see the phenomenon with people like Michael Jackson, Elvis, Britney Spears, etc. 2 things can simultaneously be true at the same time. Oftentimes, that's where the truth really lies. You can be a megastar and be extremely talented and still be attracted to children and harm them intimately. You can be the biggest megastar the world has ever seen, even 50 years after death, and still have your estate make up to $220 million a year, and still have been nothing but a very troubled man who suffered his whole career and life with severe addiction issues and mental health issues. You can be a mega star and be talented at dancing, singing, and performing on stage, and be mentally disabled and mentally ill, suffering from a cognitive impairment and also mental illness like bipolar disorder and or substance use disorder. You can be a mega star and have some musical talent, but not be a person who you carefully spend your career projecting to the world. The person that people think these artists really are behind closed doors is how they ensure that they are going to sell tickets and that they are going to sell albums and that they are going to sell merchandise. That's why they create false images, personas, and stage presences. Just think about that. If any of them really were who they say they are, why would they need to do that? If Taylor Swift is just Taylor Swift, she wouldn't need a PR machine at all. She would just rely on the truth. She would just rely on the fact, she would just rely on her fans knowing. But that's the thing, you don't know Taylor Swift. I don't know Taylor Swift. You know who does have a better idea of who Taylor Swift really is? Blake Lively, her close friend of over 10 years. I think Justin Baldoni got a little taste of exactly who she is, and it's his civil right, his constitutional right, his basic human right, his legal right, and his moral and ethical right to pursue for defamation, emotional distress, mental distress, punitive damages, and breaches of contract. He too matters as much as Me Too, and to say otherwise is discriminatory and sexist. For every diehard Taylor Swift fan that threatens to leave my channel, I will gain 50 more that won't do that and will respect facts and evidence and logical opinions based on that evidence and facts. I would not stake my entire reputation and personality on defending someone I don't even know just because she seemed nice and humble at her concert once. That's hardly knowing her. I would not attack anyone based on Taylor Swift, ever. If you're a fan and like her music, I respect that. I expect the same in return, or leaving and unsubscribing is not a loss or a threat to me. That's your right and opinion to do so. But saying I'm attacking her or disliking her because I'm speaking verified fact or truth is not going to harass me into liking her. I don't hate her, but being 39 and following her entire career from the time she started, I was a teenager too. Now being of the same generation and age, I have seen her own behavior, her own actions, her own choices, her own words, and her own behavior form my opinion of her more than any music Max Martin or Jack Antonoff can ever make and write with or for her ever does. It's the deliberate choice to try and scrub the internet of the things she does to very young developing female artists or a newly signed young female artist. that bothers me the most. There is no excuse on this planet for some of the things that she has done, including bringing lawsuits that were settled before they saw a courtroom to force her name on a songwriting credit of which she never wrote, and deliberately dropping, I know it's 36 in America, but over 78 different variants of one album internationally on the exact days and time another young artist who is very successful because she has a beautiful, natural, talented voice. A talent that often escapes Taylor, to suppress her streams and sales via Billboard and therefore her accolades. Taylor Swift should stand by her friend if she's telling the truth. Any decent human and friend would. Taylor Swift went through her own sexual assault trial because the man sued her for losing his job. She did not pursue charges against him because she couldn't. That's not why they were in court. I watched all of this happen in 2017. It wasn't sexual assault that they were in court for. He, quote, touched her, unquote. She countersued him to prove a point. That's not comparable to what Blake is alleging and saying against several people cited in her complaints in the state of California and federally. And nobody is being disparaging to any real victims. I am one. Because nobody, man, woman, or child deserves to be sexually harassed or sexually assaulted. But just believing somebody because they're famous or they're a woman shows you how much of a matriarchy there is in Hollywood. The fact that women who are middle-aged, white, famous, and wealthy can get away with falsely accusing somebody. It's not only egregious, it's the most heinous thing and the most scary thing I've ever heard, especially the weaponization of the American legal system to further perpetrate those false accusations and to harm another human being. And that is where sexual assault sounds like it's equivalent to the RAPE word. While all of it is completely horrifying for anybody to have to endure, touching a butt cheek and inappropriately forced intimacy on another human being is not the same. The word sexual assault is misleading verbiage. I don't appreciate being lied to or misled. I'm sure most people wouldn't. Taylor Swift only countersued because she was being sued for him losing his job. He touched her cheek. Blake Lively is costing 7 people over $3 billion lifelong careers. In 2024, it now became implemented that the Grammys cannot be bought. The Board of Trustees and members were always having their votes bought to therefore purchase the Grammy wins. This year, Taylor Swift was nominated in 6 categories and she won 0, not 1, because she no longer can purchase the votes from the trustees and board members. Ask yourself, the most prestigious award that you can win in music is what? A Grammy? And they can be bought 14 times over until this year when it went into effect. An Oscar? Taylor Swift has never won an Oscar because she has never done an entire song all by herself, from composition to lyrics to production to editing, nor has she ever for a film either. You know what that one saying is? Birds of a feather flock together. That's not just a made-up expression. It's based in truth. So I'm just looking at truth, facts, and evidence. If there was something to come out later to prove all of this is wrong, that all of this evidence and facts has been completely fabricated, I will be the first person to apologize and correct myself. Only time will tell, but the evidence speaks for itself now. Thank you for reading. I appreciate and love you all. Have a great Sunday. And I will also say that it's really crazy, really crazy and bizarre to me, but the fact that I know more about Taylor Swift and the truth about everything surrounding her as a 39-year-old woman who has witnessed her entire career and been here for it, that I know more than a self-proclaimed Swiftie who actually met her really knows about her. Just let that sink in for a moment. That's how well her PR machine works. And that is a prime example of how she weaponizes her fan base to do her bidding for her. But before I sign off and let you all enjoy your beautiful Sunday, I want to show you this really quick as well. As much as the Swifties don't want to hear this, Taylor Swift has been sued numerous times for plagiarism. In fact, her PR machine is so fantastic that it's able to scrub and wipe the internet of most of these lawsuits and settlements, which is another very strategic tactic legally that her legal team embarks on, making sure that this is settled out of court before it ever goes to trial. One very good example of this is when she was slapped with a lawsuit from Hall and Nathan Butler, who accused Taylor of having taken their song Play Is Gonna Play, which they wrote for girl group 3LW. So what happened? In 2018, Hall and Butler sued Swift for copyright infringement. The case was dismissed in 2018, but an appeal panel brought it back in 2021. In December of 2022, Swift and the songwriters agreed to settle the case before it ever went to trial. A federal judge dismissed the case because they agreed on a legal settlement. A part of that agreement is that they would not say anything disparaging about Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift would not admit any kind of guilt over the plagiarism. But that's exactly what it was. She was guilty of plagiarism for her song Shake It Off. She took the lines Play Is Gonna Play and Hate Is Gonna Hate. It was reported by a source that they got $8 million in the settlement and over $2.2 million for punitive damages. But let's talk about Max Martin and Jack Antonoff, who's married to Margaret Qualley. Both are great friends and are the two biggest men behind the biggest album. Since 1993, Max Martin is solely responsible for the careers and albums of Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Celine Dion, Katy Perry, Maroon 5, Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, Justin Timberlake, Kelly Clarkson, and Westlife. He has written or co-written more #1 Billboard hits than any other writer ever, including Paul McCartney and John Lennon combined. Jack Antonoff, you will notice, is always with Taylor Swift at the Grammys because he is solely responsible for writing and producing all of her albums. Although he's had a hand in all 11 of her albums, the last 5 he has solely helped produce and write on his own, whereas before that, her first 6 albums, Max Martin had a helping hand in over 3 of them. Jack Antonoff has also done albums for Lana Del Rey and recently Sabrina Carpenter, who was a child actor turned singer. Max Martin and Jack Antonoff are the 2 biggest co-writers on all of Taylor's songs. You will see their names pop up repeatedly. But let's go into the fact that Taylor Swift has dropped over 36 American variants of her latest album, which is a double album entitled The Tortured Poets Department. And this album was released on April 19th of 2024. It is counted that there is over 73 different variants internationally, including the UK variants. Let's have a look at why. She is accused of suppressing other artists on the Billboard charts by releasing multiple versions of her album, sometimes strategically timed around other artists' releases, which can artificially inflate her sales and prevent other artists from reaching the top spot. While this is a tactic used by many artists, the scale of Swift's releases and her large fan base amplify the perception of her blocking others from the charts. And this is precisely what she did to Billie Eilish. Billie's 3rd album, Hit Me Hard and Soft, was released on May 17th of 2024. Taylor Swift frequently releases different versions of her albums, including deluxe editions, Target exclusive limited editions, and live recordings with many other variations, including a limited cassette edition. These all count to her overall sales on the charts. Many music aficionados and critics argue that should not be considered. It affects other artists and impacts their chart performance, which one may argue nobody had done that to Taylor Swift in her early career, nor now. So why would Taylor intentionally do this to Billie Eilish? Is it because she doesn't conform to the status quo? Because she has the vocal talent naturally God-given? Or is it because she's beautiful, blue-eyed, and busty? Whatever her reason, Taylor Swift is very obviously jealous of younger female artists. This fact was not made more evident than in December of 2019 when Taylor Swift took home Billboard's Woman of the Decade award, where she proceeded to make her speech all about how she paved the way for an 11-year-old Billie Eilish 10 years prior, where exactly at that moment in time, 10 years prior, Taylor Swift at 20 years old was taking home Billboard's Woman of the Year award. Taylor very cunningly passed that off as she was just a 30-year-old artist who was passing the torch down to the younger female generation of new artists. Because in December of 2019, Billie Eilish also took home Billboard's Woman of the Year award at only 17 years old, where Taylor had taken it at 20 years old. Billie Eilish has also already topped Taylor Swift in the amount of accolades and Grammys that she has for such a young age in comparison to what Taylor Swift had at that same exact age. Billie Eilish does not conform to the status quo, nor does she conform to the expectations of an artist, where Taylor Swift has always done exactly that. She cannot understand why Billie Eilish is so relatable. It's her talent, her voice, the fact that she doesn't sell out, the fact that she doesn't conform and she doesn't go with the status quo. Billie Eilish is a reflection of most young women in America. And nobody is going to deny that she has a wonderful voice and she's absolutely drop dead beautiful in face, intelligence, and body. Taylor Swift received songwriting credits on 2 of Olivia Rodrigo's songs for her debut album, Sour. The song One Step Forward, Three Steps Back, and her song Deja Vu. Rodrigo retroactively added the credits after facing plagiarism accusations in social media, which is actually not true. This is another out-of-court settlement. On those same songs, both Jack Antonoff and St. Vincent had to be credited because they actually helped write and produce Taylor Swift's songs. Taylor Swift is never the sole writer, producer, and composer of any of her music. So why is this so important? It's important because Taylor Swift received millions in royalties from Olivia Rodrigo's songs Deja Vu and One Step Forward, Three Steps Back. But she's not the only one. Jack Antonoff and St. Vincent have also pocketed quite a large chunk of change in their royalties. Olivia Rodrigo was blindsided, hurt, deeply offended, and stated she would never do that to a young artist. But it's all about money. Taylor Swift has made over $250,000 in publishing royalties from Olivia Rodrigo, and Jack Antonoff has made over $260,000, where St. Vincent has pulled in almost $70,000. A part of that settlement is that Olivia Rodrigo and Taylor Swift neither would disparage each other in the mainstream media, nor would they talk about what happened in regards to the legal settlement. Oh, but let's talk about the fun part. Taylor Swift's jets. It is on X, and you can look it up. They actually do videos every year where they show every single private jet flight that Taylor Swift takes, and it's almost every day. Now, there's 365 days in a year, 366 on a leap year. Taylor Swift could not be any more tone deaf or unrelatable to the average American white middle-aged woman, nor any young modern feminist, because we don't have 2 private jets to just use at our disposal just because we want to go from Nashville, a couple states away, to visit our boyfriend, or simply because we just want to be able to go from work to our house in New Jersey, from our house to New Jersey to our house in Nashville, or we just want to go somewhere. In 2022, Taylor Swift's private jets estimated to emit thousands of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere per year, with some sources citing that her flights produced over 8,000 tons of CO2 in 2022 alone, which significantly higher than the average person's annual emissions. Most people don't fly but a couple times in their lifetime. Taylor Swift is listed as one of the celebrities with the highest carbon footprint due to her extensive private jet usage. Reports suggest her private jet emits thousands of tons of CO2 every year, with some estimates reaching over 8,000 tons of CO2 just in a single year. Now, she's received a lot of criticism for her frequent flying. Her frequent short-distance flights on private jets have drawn much criticism from environmental groups and even her Swiftie fan base. This is when her publicist actually told BBC News that Taylor uses carbon offsets to compensate for her private jet travel. But how valuable are these and make it frequent air travel more sustainable? BBC Travel has reached out to Swift's team for further comment, but yet they never respond, other than making the statement that she purchases more than double carbon credits every year. So what is a carbon credit? They are tradable certificates that represent a reduction or a removal of carbon emissions. They are used to help mitigate climate change by reducing the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Companies are given a set number of credits based on their emissions. They can buy more credits or sell extra credits. Companies are given a limit on how much carbon dioxide they can emit. They can sell credits to other companies that emit more than they do. But I'm going to show you the multiple companies and LLCs that Taylor Swift has and exactly how she gets away with doing this kind of thing. Because carbon credits do not offset the fact that if you were not flying that jet fuel and all that CO2 would not be dumped into our atmosphere on our beautiful, limited planet Earth, to which the only species on planet Earth that does something so damaging for all plant life, wildlife, ocean life is human beings. People are not wrong when they say Taylor Swift is the worst, when the exact opposite should be the truth. That Taylor Swift has the wealth, the fame, the power, the connections, and the platform to lead by example and to be a positive and proactive role model to all humans, because she has the reach and the ability to make a positive, proactive change on the climate. She wants you to instead believe that her purchasing double the amount of carbon credits is offsetting her carbon footprint. Carbon credits work an awful lot like quotas or permits for fishing do. For example, the government only allows every business and fisherman so many permits to catch so many fish. Take tuna, for example. The United States government and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Fisheries only gives about 7,000 permits for tuna catching every year in order to limit our damage to the oceanic wildlife and to allow the numbers of tuna to regenerate. If you purchase 40 permits through your business and somebody else with their business purchases 50, yet you use 40 and you need 10 more and they only use 40, they can actually sell you their other 10 permits. Carbon credits work very much the same way, and I would really love full honesty and transparency and to see how much Taylor Swift and Scott Swift actually purchase through each and every one of their businesses. The same thing can be said for damage to the atmosphere as it can be for tuna. If we're not fishing tuna and we're not consuming tuna, then we're not harming tuna. Taylor Swift really could use 3/4 less of her actual jet travel. For example, just in the last 20 hours, she traveled from Burbank, California to her house in Nashville, Tennessee, and from Nashville, Tennessee to New Orleans to attend the Super Bowl, when she simply could have skipped going to her house and just went straight from Burbank, California to New Orleans. Or she could have utilized a different way to get there without doing so much CO2 damage to our atmosphere. Taylor Swift's jets single-handedly can punch another hole into our ozone layer, which would mean irreplaceable and irresponsible damage permanently. But let's talk about Taylor's dad, Scott Swift. He was a financial advisor and stockbroker. He established the Swift Group, a financial advisory group that is a part of Merrill Lynch, where he worked. When Taylor sought to pursue her career in music, Scott relocated the company to Nashville, where he works as a top advisor and first vice president. This is actually untrue. They relocated to Nashville because of Taylor wanting to pursue music. Scott Swift put in for a transfer to the Nashville Merrill Lynch office, which he would then be granted, and that's precisely why they relocated as an entire family from Pennsylvania to Nashville, Tennessee. At 11 years old, Taylor Swift would go on to perform very small venues like local basketball games and even visit record labels in Nashville, Tennessee, of which she was rejected by every record label that existed in Nashville, Tennessee. Taylor Swift's dad, Scott Swift, also owned Swift Group. Scott Swift, being a stockbroker and a financial specialist, had some very famous wealthy clients such as Toby Keith and George Strait. Toby Keith and Scott Swift were business partners who worked together to launch Big Machine Records, the first label to sign Taylor Swift. Keith helped Swift get her big break in the music industry. How they met? They met through music executive Scott Borchetta, who was also a client of Scott Swift. Toby Keith, Scott Swift, and Scott Borchetta created Big Machine Records because Taylor Swift had been rejected by every record label. Scott Swift, along with his very famous wealthy clients and friends, made Taylor Swift a record label to which she can then be signed. At only 15 years old, a couple months before her 16th birthday, Taylor Swift would sign her first record deal with Big Machine Records, which coincidentally had been founded at the same exact time on September 1st of 2005. Just so you understand what I'm laying down here, this would be equivalent to your very wealthy father who is very connected buying you a floral shop or a chain of floral shops because you say, I want to grow up and be a florist. All of these pieces fell into place for Taylor Swift because her father, Scott Swift, made it happen through his clients and his connections, working at Merrill Lynch and being a stockbroker and financial advisor, which is another very important detail in the early start of Taylor Swift that they do not want you to know. Instead, the PR internet-friendly version is that Scott Borchetta discovered Taylor Swift at Billboard Cafe in Nashville in 2004. Taylor Swift had a contract for 13 years to do 6 albums, which she completed in 2018. And this is also no coincidence that Scott Borchetta decided he was going to sell Big Machine Records. Scott Swift, Taylor Swift, Toby Keith, and other investors were very much aware for 2 years that this sale was going to happen. This is how Scooter Braun comes into the picture because Scott Borchetta sold to Scooter Braun. The part they don't want you to know is that Scott Swift made over $15 million when that sale happened. And the real reason why Taylor Swift feels so entitled to her master recordings, because her dad only owned 3%, but they literally made the record label so Taylor Swift could be signed to a record label. Despite the fact that Scott Borchetta is the one who put up the majority of the money to create Big Machine Records, and a very rough estimate of over $700 million was said to have been spent in that 13 years, marketing, advertising, promoting, recording all of Taylor Swift's first 6 albums. Owning the masters or the publishing rights or the lyric rights is how record labels are to ensure that they are going to receive a profit for the money that they put up in advance for you. And Taylor Swift's cash advance at only 15 years old was said to be in the millions before work ever even began on her first album. A cash advance works the same way it does when you author a book. A cash advance is a large check that an artist receives in exchange for giving up the master rights to their music. An advance is meant to be used for recording, promotion, and living expenses. The master rights to an artist's music give the label ownership of the original recordings. The label uses the advance to recoup their investment in the artist to begin with. In other words, it cost a lot of money to record albums and to have producers help record and write the music and the words for those albums. Not only for the recording and the time and the studio equipment that you're using, but the marketing, the promoting, and the radio play, the streaming, all of that has to be a profit for them as well. That's why there are record contracts to begin with. In 2019, when Scooter Braun bought Big Machine Records and gained ownership of Swift's masters, Braun later sold the masters without Swift's knowledge, which meant that Swift didn't receive any profit from the sale or for streaming of her songs. Taylor Swift felt entitled because her dad had been a very small investor with his very famous, well-connected, wealthy clients who helped create Big Machine Records. Essentially, because her dad was an investor, that would give her leverage and access to her masters on the record label's end of the contract. Creating Big Machine Records was nothing more than Daddy giving her what she wanted. Scott Swift is solely responsible for all of the business ventures and the finances behind Taylor Swift and Taylor Swift's music. But let's look really quickly at some of the other companies and LLCs that Taylor Swift and her father have. There is TAS Rights Management, 13 Management, Taylor Swift Productions, Inc., Taylor Nation, LLC, TAS Rights Management, LLC, 13 Management, LLC. And through each one of these, quote, businesses, unquote, she can purchase carbon credits for one single human being to be able to utilize her 2 private jets. If you lost count, I'll help you. That's 8 different LLCs or companies. But then there's Scott Swift. Scott Swift not only worked with Merrill Lynch, but he has the Swift Group, which he owns. It's registered as an investment advisor firm. And that is precisely what famous wealthy people do. They have somebody oversee their investment and financial portfolios. And by keeping it in the family, Taylor Swift doesn't have to pay for these services. He also deals with merchandising businesses, rights management businesses, tour bus ownership, the private jet ownership, and all real estate in regards to his daughter, Taylor Swift. Oh, that's right. You heard me right. And remember Taylor Swift's very first album? She had a song entitled Tim McGraw. Now, remember how I told you Toby Keith and George Strait and Scott Borchetta all helped open and start Big Machine Records with Taylor's dad, Scott Swift? George Strait, Toby Keith, and Tim McGraw all played a part in how Taylor was able to be opening acts. George Strait and Toby Keith being common denominators along with Scott Swift. But it was ultimately Scott Borchetta who had the connections and the money, all of which were very important and instrumental in Taylor Swift's entire career on all 11 of her albums, because had she not had that studio or the record contract or the musicians or the producers, she would not be where she's at by herself. Taylor Swift was completely made by Scott Swift. And yes, I understand and I respect anybody that likes Taylor Swift or her diehard fans that absolutely love and defend her to the ends of the earth. However, you cannot force or harass or bully other people into liking her just because you do, or even liking her music. It is fact, truth, and evidence that makes me form my opinion on Taylor Swift. And the only person that is solely responsible for that is Taylor Swift herself. Mega celebrities are not famous and rich because they are talented or hardworking. It's truly the oldest story in the book. Somebody that's already born to privilege, continuing to have that privilege. Connections are the biggest power that any one person can exude. And Taylor Swift has the best connection to her father, Scott Swift, who is a very intelligent, financially smart, cutthroat, ruthless businessman who very strategically created and maintained his daughter's entire life and career. Scott Swift is the savvy businessman, and he's also the biggest cog in Taylor Swift's PR machine. And that is all I have to say about that for educational and entertainment purposes only. I highly suggest you do your own research to form and conclude your own thoughts, opinions, feelings, and expressions. Happy Super Bowl Sunday, everybody. Taylor Swift is there. She did arrive at the Super Bowl, and the Eagles are up 7-0. It has been projected by quite a few people in my sphere that the Eagles are going to win, but we'll have to wait and see. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for joining me. Drop your comments down below, and do not forget to subscribe, like, turn on notifications, and share.